So day 3 of October, 31 days of horror movies I'm watching for the first time. I watched Tenebrae today, which is one of Dario Argento's film that I have not seen. And I have always wanted to see Tenebrae. I have not, I don't know why it took me so long to see this one, but I've seen a lot of his movies, and I loved almost all of his movies, a majority of them that I've seen. The only one that I've seen that I didn't love was Inferno, but the other ones I've seen are really great. So going into Tenebrae, I was like, this is gonna be probably pretty solid. And people on Killer Flicks, people online, they told me that this is a great Dario Argento one. And after watching it, yeah, this one was fucking awesome. I loved Tenebrae. I loved the fact that this one is very similar to all his other movies that I've seen, but I really loved it for the most part. The only thing I have an issue with this movie is that I don't love the characters in it. And this is only my first watch, so maybe if I watch it again, maybe I'll feel differently. But at this first watch, I felt like these characters weren't interesting. They were just there. Even John Saxon who's in this as well, is really fine, but it's just like these characters are not very interesting. It's not like, say, Suspiria or Deep Red, or like Opera, or the Cat O' Nine Tails, where these characters are interesting and I care for them. And this one, I didn't not care for them, but I didn't feel much for these characters. Like, I felt like the other movies, for the most part, besides Inferno, I felt like Inferno has a similarity to this one, where I just didn't care for the characters either. They're just there for the carnage. But in a lot of Argento's movies that I've seen, like, he's got characters that I think are interesting and likable. In this one, these characters are likable, but they're just not very interesting. And that's my one gripe with this movie, is that I didn't care for these characters. Just like Inferno, but every other one I've seen him do, or every other one that I've seen of his so far, I've liked all the characters besides this and Inferno, so it's unfortunate. But this one, despite that, has some of the greatest violence so far I've seen in any of these movies. These kills are insane. Like, I love the fact that this one, like all the other ones I've seen, is incredibly brutal. Like, the brutality in his movies, I think, is just so unique. He does a unique job of making these movies stand out in the horror genre. And I love the fact that it is Italian horror. It's not American horror either, but he does a fantastic job of making this movie brutal and relentless in a lot of ways with the violence. The violence is really, really great. And I think that there are moments where, like, say somebody gets a body part cut off and, like, blood splatters all over the wall. Like, it is visually disturbing, but awesome. I love the fact that with some of these kills in this movie is great. I really did love the violence in this movie. Like, for a horror movie, this is really incredibly effective. Like, again, like most of his other movies, this is just so effective. And the score, I watched this last night, and the score, I literally listened to a couple different times since last night on YouTube because it was so good. Again, it was performed by Goblin again. And Goblin, I just love everything that they've done so far with Argento's movies that I've seen, because I don't know them besides the fact that they did a score for these movies, or did scores for a lot of his movies. So their scores are incredible so far that I've heard, and this one is no exception. This one is a great score. And I guess this is also a negative, but it's not as big of a negative as the characters. But I felt like this movie visually didn't pop like other ones that he has that I've seen, like Suspiria or Deep Red or Opera. Like, this one didn't pop in terms of, like, this, like, you can watch a frame of this movie and tell that this is not like his other ones in terms of visually. Like this one felt plain. Like again, like in Suspiria, the use of colors, or just how like other movies like that he's done, like, they have a visual cue that, like, makes it stand out. And if you look at a shot of the movie, you're like, oh, that's Suspiria, oh, that's Deep Red. But this one just wasn't that, and it's unfortunate too. Like, it's not a big downer because the violence and the score is really fantastic, but the only things, like I said, that do annoy me is that, and they're not even big annoyances, like this movie is still great, like this is still a great movie, it's just these characters are not very interesting, and I think that this movie doesn't visually look like, it doesn't give like its identity to itself in terms of the look, like it's totally fine, it's just not like incredible looking, like some of his better looking movies, but this is still totally a solid movie. Definitely one of the, after the ones that I love, this is definitely next. It's just like, this one is totally fine still. But I just think that it did suffer from being just not as interesting characters, and the movie was just more bland looking. But that still, regardless, doesn't matter much because the violence and the score are incredible. Like, they're still really, really engaging on those facts. So, I may have a couple little issues with this movie, but this movie is still great. Like, it's still a great horror movie. It's just not, like, masterpieces, or, well, I don't even want to use the word masterpiece, because people will be like, oh, this blah, blah, blah isn't a masterpiece, because I feel like if you say masterpiece, people will bitch and complain. But, I think that it's not like something like Suspiria, Deep Red Opera, like where I love those movies. I think they're incredible. This one wasn't incredible, but it was really good. It had incredible violence, incredible score, the characters were okay, the movie looked okay. So you could say I'm mixed on it, but I like it more than I dislike it, definitely. Like, I think it's still got such great, strong points to it that I feel like this still is such a great horror movie. So overall, it's not my favorite out of Argento's, but this one is still a really solid outing, and I really, really enjoyed Inferno. So yeah, this one was really, really solid. So thank you guys so much for watching. Check out my other stuff. I've reviewed other Argento movies, which is this year is when I started watching them for the first time. So check those out. I did some for Suspiria, Deep Red, Cat O' Nine Tails, Opera, like I think another one, but I really do love Argento's work so far that I've watched. So, so overall, this one was really, really solid, and I really, really enjoyed it. So thank you guys so much for watching.